Okay, let me go ahead and get started. Um, First of all, I want to talk about uh, FinViz for a little bit. Um, can you guys see the screen and hear my voice? Is it clear? Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. All I need is one. Okay. Um, so what I did with FinViz this time around is created a customized screen for the scanner. Now again, FinViz updates every 10 seconds, so a lot of you may not have the time to keep looking at it. But the first 10 minutes of the day is the most important time that you will use FinViz. Basically, if you go under Screener and go to ERS Custom View, um, this is what you get. Now, I know we're used to having the charts and the news and stuff like that. This way, you get the symbols right away. When you hover over, you can get a snapshot of what the chart looks like, and you can click and get the news and stuff like that. So you can also look at the float. Hey, what's the float of the company? I mean, something like this has a 305 million float will move a lot slower than something that has 6 million or even a 17 million float stock. So something to consider. Um, it also tells you the gapping, how much did it gap from open or from yesterday's close. So yesterday's close, it gapped up 31% and overall was up 53% for the day. It gapped up 18%, but overall today was up 164% from yesterday. So things like that can help you make decisions in real time. And we can talk about this later, but let me go through all the trades that were recommended and that I actually executed since last week. Last Wednesday, no trade was made on my part. The first trade was on Thursday morning. The one recommended was RELY, and let's go ahead and chart that in real time to see why we bought it and when we should have sold it. So, the first step when we do anything like this is, pre-market. What's moving pre-market? We get those charts ready in stock charts. And then the first 10 minutes, we see, or I see, and some of you may be tracking it as well, FinViz. What's moving in FinViz? For example, FNBC was down here in the morning, and slowly you see it creep up, all the way to the number one spot for the day. And of course, because it went up 165%. You saw PPP, which was on the top of the list in pre-market, go down to number 11. You saw PIRS, which was number one early in pre-market, go down to number two, but still had a very, very good day. I wish I would have bought that early morning, and we'll go through why we didn't and how we can follow up with that next time. Tahoe was up in the top 5 early morning. Then as it got up, it got slower and slower and kept going down. But that was a top 5 stock throughout the morning. So between 8 and 8:40 is the best time to identify stocks you want to focus on. I'm not saying that others are not going to move, but if you can get about 5 or 6 at that point, you can make an educated decision and get in and get out before 9 a.m. hopefully. One stock that's not on this list that we bought today, I believe, or yesterday. Well, we'll go through it. So RELY was last week on Thursday, and as we do with everything going forward, we're going to draw our resistance line, which is the first 10-minute box right there. So let me bring the screen down. There you go. At 265 is our resistance line. Once it crosses resistance, that's our signal to go ahead and get into that stop. Let's see when it crosses. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes in, it made a cross above our resistance. That's when we get in, and that's when I actually got in. And I had a trading stop loss of 5%. So as soon as it went up here and it dropped, it automatically sold. So the percentage wasn't as high, but it was a decent percentage where we were able to make some money. It's sold right around here, 4%. Easy 4% gain the first half of the day. You can take the rest of the day off if you want. But what was interesting, at the same time, I was following MTBC, which was also taking off. And this is a chart from the same day, last Thursday. The first 10 minutes, as you can see, empty white box, nothing really happening. Second one was a red. The third is when you get that big white candle. And this is the moment where it started trending on Finviz, the 30 minutes in. But like we do with all of our other picks, we are going to, whoa. I got the right chart going in. I'll do the 27. Actually, we could look at a longer chart. We can chart out these first 10 minutes of every day and see when we would have bought and stuff like that. Because this is a multi-day stock. So I would go ahead and draw my horizontal line in the first 10 minutes, even after it popped up, so I know where the line should be. So that's the top of the first 10 minutes. Spiked up here. This is when you start on Finviz. The moment you start on Finviz, it was already a buy because it already passed the first 10 minutes. A strong candle, MACD's above 0, RSI touching 70. Everything up here looks really good. It's a definite buy. And it just keeps up and up and up. I usually like to sell when I see the first red box. That's my sign of saying, hey, something's going to go on, let me get out. And the first red box was at 27% for the day. That's how much you could have made if you stuck around that stock. CD charting first 10 minutes, and we're go. The next day, I'm going to use a different color this time. Use pink. It's the same thing, right? So the first day it was a runner. The second day, we are thinking it may be a runner as well. Usually it's a multi-day thing. So we draw a line in the first 10 minutes, which is, I believe, right over here. That is the first 10 minutes of the next day. I'm looking for a clear crossing, which I see right over here. But do I see any confirmation on that? Stochastics up here, below 100. Barely one green candle on the volume. Look at RSI towards the middle, which is okay. But you would have bought it probably 30 minutes in. There's the white box. It gave you false hope the next 10 minutes, and it came back down. Your stop loss should have been at 160. That's where the resistance is. and it may have hit your stop loss for the day. That would have probably ended up costing you, if you would have gone in, probably around 8.5%. Now, I don't think this showed up on Finviz, or if it did, it was fairly low, because Finviz, the higher gaps are on top. So this was, if this even showed up, I'm not sure if it did, would be like a number of 15 or 16, which is way too low for us to do anything with anyways. I'm going to erase this pink line because the next line is going to intersect with it. So the next day, this is a mover, and this one did show up on Finviz after the first 20 minutes. The first 10 minutes is right over here at $1.60. That's radar resistance. The next 10 minutes, it pops up above a solid white bar above your resistance. It's telling you to get in right away. At that moment, it would have been on Finviz. If not on Finviz, it should be on your daily tracker, because you've had some success in the last couple of days, and the chart looked like a breakout chart anyways.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, sure.
I was wondering, so you keep referring to Finviz. I was just wondering what that reference is towards.
Oh, Finviz is this website right here. So what Finviz does is it scans the market every 10 seconds. And so when
I'm
I say
actually on audio.
Oh, okay. The Finviz.
I'll get on my computer in a little bit. I'm away from it right now.
Yeah, no problem. What I'll do is at the end, I'll put a PowerPoint presentation together with screenshots. So if you can't get on, you'll get that PowerPoint. Just make sure you email me or send me your email. If you're on audio, then I probably don't have your login. But Finviz is a website that we use to screen the market. Usually, the way the screen is laid out, the ones with the highest volumes are always on top, along with the higher percent change. So if a stock has the volume but only up 4 or 5%, it could be the lower end of the chart of our screener. So I don't focus on anything below a number 10. So that would have been about a 16 on that day. But if you were to look at on first, that's what you're looking at, probably a number 8 or number 7. That would be in my radar personally, and I would have had a chart on it ready to go. So the first 20 minutes, you see the white box, you're ready to go. Third 20 minutes, at least the third 10-minute interval, within the first 2 minutes, you have a really clear sign that it's a go. And we do the same thing. We get in, we buy. Your stop loss is always going to be your resistance. So at that point, the max you would have lost if you had a bad day would have been about 10%. And your gain, if you had gotten in, I did not get in on that day. You're looking at a 37% gain. So a 10% risk for a 37% gain. That's a great ratio. And we know, and from people who've been following us throughout the month or the year actually, every month we get at least one stock that goes up 100%. Whether it does it the same day or within multiple days, it will get to 100%. So we need to be more conscious about what the stock is telling us, how it's moving, and if it's been a success day 1, we got to keep it in a watch list for day 2 and day 3 and day 4, just in case it's able to get back up and we make some money. So that was an easy 37.5% gain. We move on to the next day. Now, so far, just MTBC, if you were gone in the last 3 days, you would have had 2 great days for a 64% gain and 1 10% loss. So average about 54% gain in the last 3 days. Day 4 was really interesting, and this is why our method of using the first 10 minutes as your resistance really pays off. We draw the line right over here, which is at around $2.20. It's a red candle, and throughout the day, the stock never clears that line. It does once right before noon, but right above it is your 20-day average, and that's already an automatic resistance anyways. We don't look at it if it's below that and so close to that, and so we just let it go, and it drops all day long. And I think that's the day that we actually got into the stock, right around when it hit the 20-day average. We got a little greedy. I got out with a small gain, or probably a little bit of loss. Some of you got a really great price. You could have made some great profit. I got greedy, and I just barely passed my commission. And if you would have held on overnight, next day you would have redeemed yourself, and it goes back down. So I think this stock now is done. It's been flatlining all day today. Nothing really exciting happening. When we scroll up, you can see the volume. Look towards the left of your chart. The volume is, the highest spike we've had in a 10-minute period was 2.5 million. Compared to today, the highest spike we had was about 131,000. So that tells you how much the volume has shifted. And this stock right now is a great candidate for shorting you if you want to go ahead and short stocks. But that's a personal opinion. So MTCB was a great run, and again, I guess MTBC and CYTR earlier this month both hit close to 100% in multiple days. In the previous months, we had HTGM, and I believe PULM or AUPH in the past have run up to 100% within the same day. So we just got to be more aware of what's going on and get in right when the opportunity strikes. And it's all about risk, right? So the higher we get in from resistance, the higher our risk is, because our stop loss is going to be at that point. But if the chart looks good, stochastics is above 80, volume is good, I think it's worth a 20-30% gain for a 10% risk. So let's go ahead and keep moving. Next on the list, CYH. We recommended this one the other day on May 2nd, yesterday. And this was a very, very beautiful setup. And let me look at the float for this stock. And for those of you who need to brush up on your glossary, the float basically means the amount of shares available to purchase for a certain stock. The float for this was 110, which is high. Not really a big fan for anything over 50, 60 million, just because it'll take so much more volume for it to rotate and the price moves up a lot slower. So CYH and TAHO today that we bought, if you look at the chart, they all went up, but it took a while for it to slowly move up, and it just kind of, you get bored after the first hour. So I try not to, but if the setup is good, I'd rather take some profit than no profit. And the great thing about this stock was on May 2nd, actually May 1st at night, they announced that they have an agreement to sell 2 other hospitals to the HCA, which of course means more money coming into the business. They now have more capital to do whatever they want with. And if these hospitals were not making any money, it's good to have bad assets off their books. So the news was positive. Pre-market, CYH was in the top 5, which is a great sign. And so we do what we do all the time. We draw our resistance after the first 10 minutes. And I'm going to draw my line right over here. at $9.60 is my resistance. Within the next 10 minutes, the next 10 minutes opened at 960, and first 2 minutes into it, I already knew it was going to pass it because the volume was high, MACD was positive above zero, RSI was above 70, everything was a go, and that's exactly what we did. We got in right around 970, and if you would have held on, it topped out at about 1040 for a 7.3% gain. Let me change this chart over to what we're used to. That way you can see it in a better view. And I'll do a 2-day chart to see how it ended up as well. So let me do a 2-day chart. Okay, let me go and draw my lines again. There you go, 960 was the line. And we usually sell when the stock hits the 8-day average, 8-day exponential moving average, which is right over here, which is a 5.8% gain. And if you would have held on to the highs, you would have made around 8.6%. So it didn't go up as much as a 30 or 40% gain, but your stop loss was very short, meaning if it would have dropped, you would have lost less than 1%, but you had a 5-6% gain to look forward to. Again, the reason why this stock moved so slowly was because of the high float. It would need 110, the volume for the day would need to be 110 million to cycle through the float for one time, which is a lot, asking a lot to do for a company that most people may not even know about. So easy buy, easy sell. This was a very, very safe choice, and you would have gone away with a quick 6% gain. We can now move on to CVO. I'm not sure if I alerted this one in the group chat, but I personally bought this one myself, and it was a very, very simple, very easy buy and sell. And let me just make sure it looks okay here. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I mean, this is how we have to do it, and this is how disciplined we have to be. We have to draw our lines the same way every time. So let me do the dates. We need it for 2017. Okay. Okay, first 10 minutes. Okay, let me get out of here and click on it again. Okay. Okay, so $5 resistance line. that was the line for the first 10 minutes. And then we wait. We wait for it to cross the line. And if it's a pretty strong cross as far as the white box goes, then we usually get in. If we see a lot of up and downs, a lot of indecisiveness, then we wait for a third box to see to confirm the pattern. In this case, the volume was so low, only 121,000 was the volume. I waited for that third box, and we got the confirmation. We get in right over here, and we get out right when it crosses the 8-day average, which is 3% gain. It was an easy, no-brainer, perfect setup, 3% gain. Now, I know it's not as much as we were used to, but I think MTBC took up a lot of the volume for some of these small caps throughout the week, and we didn't really see any big movements anywhere else. Easy buy, easy go. Even your stop loss would have been, less than 3%. Ideally, I would not recommend this stock, and that's the reason why I didn't, because of the low volume. It takes a lot more for this stock to move. But a 3% gain is a 3% gain. Moving on to TAHO. This one, I lost my patience today. My goal was set at $9. I ended up selling at $8.86. I got between $8.86 and $8.88. And then right after I sold, of course, it went ahead to $9.20, $9.24. So if I had the patience to hold it all day, I could have made a decent return. But we're gonna do the same thing like we do for all the other ones. We're gonna annotate. I don't know why that keeps happening, but we'll just go with it. The first 10 minutes, right over there. We got a white box as confirmation. And this stock did not touch the 8-day average until 8.95. And if you're following on the chat today, you guys would have heard that, I kept mentioning that the stop loss kept moving up, and that's because the 8-day average was creeping up and the stock was going sideways. What usually happens when the stock loses momentum is you'll see it rocket up and then just slump over. Usually it slumps over and just drops. This one slumped over and just went sideways. So I think it had enough momentum to get to that $9 range, which the $9 range was a daily resistance for the stock. So the last time it kind of went sideways was at $9. And usually when you have good news, and they did have good news, I think they posted a first quarter profit. You would think they have enough momentum to get back to the $9 range. It was an easy 4% gain today. Not much risk at all. This had a high float, so you don't have a lot of people shorting or selling. And if they do, it's not going to affect the price as much. So that's why even when we did have sell-offs, it always stayed above the 8-day average. When you have a lower float stock, if people start shorting or selling really fast, the stock can drop very, very quickly. So Tahoe was another one for today, an easy 4% gain. And then after that, we recommended a high risk trade for FNBC. And this stock is interesting because it posted some good news, but they got a notice of delisting from the NASDAQ. So I think next week or the week after, this stock will not be available to trade on NASDAQ because it stayed below $1 for a certain amount of time. And for stocks that stay below $1, that's sometimes a risk that you take, is getting delisted. So this one popped up on FinViz midday. I want to say around between 11 and 12. I alerted to it around 16.85 to $17, which is right over here. And as you can see, it's already past the 20-day average, the 8-day average, 20-day average. I'm sorry, the 50-day average. Everything looks good up there. So I went ahead and I bought it around right below 17 cents. And I sold it at close to, it was close to 19 when I got out. So it was a 10.5% gain. And that's the right place to get out because as you can see, the red box crossed the 8-day average. My price just went through a little bit lower than I expected. So still 11% gain. But if you would have held on to the stock and the momentum was there, because it went down on Finviz again to like number 3, and then it popped back up around here. So what we see here is the 65-day average, which is another resistance on its own. And when I see it making this U popping back up, and I think someone mentioned in the group that this stock was coming back around. Once it cleared the resistance of 65 days with the CCI above 100, MACD positive, RSI above, it was going to go up. But again, it was just too much risk to reward because it's such a low penny stock, and it was definitely going to drop soon, and it did. So it went up another 30%, and then it came back down to 24 cents. So if I would have held on for the ride going down, either you would have made 29% or lost 10% by the end of the day. So high risk, high return basically. But this was a unique case, not much as far as news goes, but just that, hey, it's going to be delisted, so people are interested in it. They're just writing it up. People are just buying it and writing it up and taking profit. And then once it gets to a certain level, people start shorting, and then it drops back down. So people made money going up, and then people started making money going down. But all in all, this week has been pretty decent. I think we're right on top this week. But I think tomorrow and Friday will be really good days because today we saw PIRS make a really big move, and so that's going to be on my radar. And let's chart that one really quickly as well, because that one we should have bought, but we didn't. And by the time we looked at it, it was already coming back down, but then it made a second run. And these runs, you've got to be very alert. With PIRS, it was already at the top on our scan list, so we should have already had a chart for this ready to go, no matter what, because it's on top for a reason. I just dropped the ball on this today, so I did not get a chance to pay attention. But first 10 minutes, $3.15, and then within probably the next 2-3 minutes, you already know. It just flies through the resistance and just keeps going up. And even if you would have caught it halfway, that's a 9% gain in under 10 minutes. That's a very simple gain. It does not cross the the 8-day average till much later in the day at around 11. So if you would have held on, I mean, you could have, survived this red box, and you could have gone up to about another 17%. That was the high of the day after that. Being more conservative, you could have easily cleared 10 to 13% on this stock. But again, let's look at what happens afterwards, right? It touches the 8-day average, hangs out there for a while. We see a big white spike. But now our resistance has changed. Our resistance is now up here. So once it crosses that line, that's when we're going to get back in and hopefully make some money. By the time it gets over here, the MACD is not really positive. It's actually barely touching. RSI has no interest compared to what it was before, very green. Stochastics is there, but the volume levels have just tapered off, and it did not have the push to get back up there. But the first probably 2 hours, or from 8:30 to about 9:30, first hour or so, would have been the best chance to profit. And we've seen this pattern a lot. The first 2 hours of the day are the best time to make money. Then throughout the day, it goes up and down. The volume kind of tapers off. And then at the end of the day, we see the movement again. And that's when you can make some serious money into the close and then overnight. Okay. Another one that caught my attention for the past 2 days was ZN. I think it had a really good day today. And yesterday it had a decent day as well, I believe. Yeah. So ZN showed up in our scan this morning. Now the gain wasn't going to be that high because the volume is less than 500,000. But all the volume basically happened the first half of the day. After that, it was kind of dry. But when you look at it the same way we look at everything else, the first 10 minutes is where you draw your line, which is right over here at $56. The second one pierced through, but it was not as strong as we wanted. We wait for confirmation, which we got up here, and we ride it up. It was an easy 5% gain in 20 minutes. If you were going to be conservative, 3% gain in 30 minutes. So between 3 and 6% is what your goal could have been on this one in about 20 minutes. Now, for those of you who have limited resources in your accounts, a 3% gain is barely going to cover commission. So that's where we look for the best combination, which would be, let me show you an example of a good one. It will be a low float bio company. So like, for example, FNBC would have been a great one, which you would have made money today. PIRS would not have been, because if you look at the float, that's 41 million. Yes, the stock went up 31.6%, but the float was 41 million. So that means minimum volume for you to have any big moving action will be 41 million for that day. And today it hit 27.7. The reason why MTBC, a stock like that, can go 100% in, well, let's look at it. It went from basically 50 cents to $250 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. It's all because of the float. And look at that float, 4.5 million. Just today alone, on a negative day, the volume was 6.4. So that tells you something, and it should give you a really good idea of what you should be looking for to turn your small dollars into big dollars. And this one had a really good catalyst. I think it was on the first, it came out with that develops interfaces between clinical platforms, blah, blah, blah. Stock went up 76%. Before that, on the 17th, it pre-released its revenue growth and selected primary Q1 financial results. Again, selected primary results, so basically showing the good part. Stock jumped up 31%. So that's what low float can give you. If you have a low float with decent news, you can make really, really quick money. Last month we had HTGM which I sold out very low on, but because it had, I think, like a 800,000 float, I get 800,000, and the volume in the first hour was somewhere around 17 million. So that stock went up 100 and something percent within the first 2 hours of the day. And those are something that will happen at least once a month. I mean, we saw with MTBC, with CYTR earlier in the month, where it was at, close to 40, 50, then it goes up to 90, 97 cents. That's almost 100% gain in about 3 days worth of trading. So stocks like that is what you need to focus on if you have, I would say, under 10,000 in your portfolio. Stocks like THO and CYH, they're good, but they're going to give you 4 or 5 or 6%. They're not going to give you that 30, 40% that you really are looking for. And that's why this screener is really good, because it gives you that float right away. It tells you, hey, this is a 17.9 million float, which may be a little bit too high, depending on how much you want to make. For example, something like this would be a really good candidate, 6.7 million, Famous Dave's of America. It went all the way up to $5 today, which is well over 12%. Something like this you should never buy is something like this. Kinross Gold Corporation. Yes, it went up today, and it was a really good, decent cross. But look at that float. It's 1.2 billion with a B, meaning it's going to have to move a lot for you to make any decent amount of money. Yes, it went up 10%, but we're looking for the 30, 40, 50 to 100% gains. And that was not available in the market this morning. Other than MTBC, for the last week, it was not available. Those are basically the only ones that I thought we should focus on, because they had some movement. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or any other stocks you want me to chart?
Hey, Ursula.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I have a question. So when we make money, I have a hard time finding the right timing to sell and cut the profit. What's the general rule for that?
So the best time, and that's a great question, because that's what everyone, buying is the easy part, selling is the hard part. My general rule is, for example, for TAHO, whenever the stock touches the black line, is your time to get out, because it's testing resistance or testing support at this time, and you don't. And the 8-day average has usually been my stop loss, anyways. And anytime it goes below it, so I can cover some profits and not have too much of a loss. So there's no real timing. But what I have noticed is that past 11, I would say past 10:30, on most of these stocks, the volume dries up significantly. So if you're hoping for a big spike after 10:30, 11 o'clock, it's probably not going to happen unless the volume has been consistent. So if it's a buy within the first 20 minutes of the day, I would probably hold it for another 30, 40 minutes. Before I would just take some profit. But if you want to, kind of buy it, but kind of forget about it at the same time, you can set a 5% or a 10% trailing stop loss, meaning whatever the high of the time is, if it goes down 10% from that high, it'll sell automatically. So if the stock let's say the stock goes up to $10, and then it goes back down 10%, it's going to sell right away. So I at least keep $9 worth of profit and only lose that $1 because it went down 10%. But past 11 o'clock, is always going to be, you're going to keep an eye on it because the volume is not going to be there to help push it up. And TAHO is a perfect example. Look at look how high it went the first 40 minutes of the day, and then it just kind of went sideways, a little bit higher but sideways, then eventually tipping over and stabilizing at around $9. But the first hour is when you had the most momentum, and you can see that by the volume on top. And that's going to happen with all of them. So if I was to look at CYH from the other day, that's a perfect example of a stock that had momentum. And let me just look at it really quickly. 2017. Let's look at it for yesterday. Yeah, and we could put today's in it as well, so we can see how the volume has trended throughout the day. So look at the volume, all green bars, and then the volume just goes down, and at the very end just have a volume spike, but no action down here. So that's just a false alarm. But look how high it goes the first up, and these are Eastern time, so up till 10 a.m. and then it just goes sideways because the volume just dries right up and starts going down. So 10 to 11, if you're still holding past 10 o'clock, I would look into a great exit point. And if it starts going down, it's going to go down further and it's time to get out. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Anything else? Anyone else? Nope, I just saw your message, Bowen, but yeah, I think I already talked about that, so we're good. Any other questions? Concerns? Has the game started yet? Yeah, it probably already has. Okay. I mean, if there's nothing else to talk about, I think we're done for today. I'm going to go ahead and take screenshots of these charts with my lines and some notes, put them in a PowerPoint, and share with the group. And again, this video will be uploaded to YouTube as well. So if you don't have access to PowerPoint or this call, I'll send a link in the group, hopefully, if it uploads tonight. Okay. Any going once, going twice? Any other questions? Okay. That's all I have. No problem, sir. No problem. Then hopefully, I think going forward, as we get used to scanning and all that stuff, we'll be able to pinpoint. And I encourage, if you have any scanning ideas, let me know. I can create a customized scan, and we can go from there. I just want to pinpoint stocks so we can make the most amount of money on. Because right now, between probably 825 and 840, I have about 15 tabs open, each of them with a different chart, and looking at the perfect entry point. So, today and yesterday have been really good days in picking stocks. I think like 90% of stocks that we've talked about made money, for someone at least. But they want these 30, 40, 50% gains that we wanted. So now that we're getting the idea of getting the stocks, now let's drill down into the ones that we have the best chance of making the high amount of money in. Because if you get 5 good 30% runners, which is definitely feasible in 1 month, maybe even 2, you can do at least 5 30% runners in 2 months. MTCB alone will give you that over 3 days. Your stat, even with a $5,000 account, that's $1,500 per trade. So since a lot of us have low capital, we need to conserve our day trades. And I think focusing on the right stocks will make you the most money for the available trades that you have. Okay, well, that's all I had. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
All right, guys. All right.
Bye.
All right, bye.